Hi, Guy. Tonight we find ourselves in a quiet monastery nestled beside emerald rice paddies, the air thick with the scent of incense and the promise of a coming storm. The kind of storm that whispers ancient secrets and might just sweep you away into the spirit world. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me in the comments where you're at and what time it is over there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are now Tanuma, a shrine maiden on the verge of a life-altering decision. The rhythmic chanting of the monks, a deep, resonant hum that vibrates through the very floorboards beneath you, blends with the distant cries of a firewood seller, his voice echoing through the narrow, winding alleys of your village. It's a familiar sound, a comforting counterpoint to the storm raging within you. The wind picks up, rustling the leaves of the ancient maple tree just outside the monastery window, its branches reaching towards the darkening sky like gnarled fingers. It's a heavy burden you carry now. For generations, the women of your family have served as Miko, shrine maidens, a vital link between the spirit world and the realm of humans. Think of it. You, the conduit for the whispers of the gods, the interpreter of dreams, the guardian of ancient traditions. Historians tell us that Miko, like you, played an essential role in ancient Japanese villages, performing sacred rituals, offering prayers, and ensuring the harmony between the two worlds. They were respected, revered, their wisdom sought by villagers and leaders alike. The firewood seller's cry drifts closer, a melodic chant punctuated by the rhythmic clack of his wooden sandals against the cobblestone path. It's a curious thing, these calls. Each firewood seller had their own unique cry, passed down through families, a sort of auditory trademark. Some were short and sharp, others long and lyrical, each designed to resonate through the village and attract customers. This one sounds suspiciously like he's advertising deep-fried tofu instead of firewood. Must be hungry. Your fingers trace the smooth, worn surface of the ofuda, the sacred wooden charm you hold, a physical representation of your connection to the divine. But your heart is heavy, your mind a whirlwind of doubt. The path laid out before you, the path of a Miko, feels constraining. You yearn for something more, something beyond the confines of the shrine, beyond the rituals and traditions that have bound your family for centuries. The head monk's chanting intensifies, rising and falling in a strange cadence. It sounds a lot like someone trying to start a lawnmower, doesn't it? Well, meditation takes many forms, I suppose. You stifle a giggle, the sound swallowed by the growing storm. Even in this sacred space, amidst the weight of your decision, you find a flicker of humor, a brief respite from the internal struggle. The question hangs heavy in the air. Should you embrace your destiny, follow in the footsteps of your ancestors and become the next Miko? Or should you forge your own path, a path unknown, filled with both terrifying uncertainty and exhilarating possibility? It's a question that scholars still debate today. Did the role of shrine maidens diminish with the rise of organized Buddhism in Japan, or did it simply adapt and evolve? Perhaps your own journey will provide an answer. The wind howls outside, mirroring the turmoil within you. You glance at the emerald rice paddies swaying gently in the breeze, their vibrant green a stark contrast to the darkening sky. You could swear they're gossiping about your predicament. Plants have ears too, you know. The firewood seller's cry reaches its crescendo just outside the monastery gates. You close your eyes, taking a deep breath, the scent of incense filling your lungs. The storm is almost here, and so is your decision. One path leads to the familiar comfort of tradition, the other to the vast unknown. Which will you choose now? The whispers of the spirits await your answer. The rice paddies hold their breath. The very air crackles with anticipation. The storm breaks, and your journey truly begins. The rhythmic chanting of the monks, a sound as familiar as the mountain air itself, echoed through the monastery courtyard. Incense curled lazily towards the eaves, carrying with it the scent of sandalwood and tranquility. Then a shadow fell across the threshold, long and lean, and the air crackled with a different kind of energy. Kawakami Gensai stood there, a wandering samurai, his presence a stark contrast to the serene backdrop. His eyes, sharp and weary, like polished obsidian, hinted at a life lived on the edge of a blade. Dust from the road clung to his worn traveling cloak, and his hand rested, almost absently, on the hilt of his katana. His arrival shattered the peaceful rhythm of the monastery. The chanting faltered, heads turned, and the air, once thick with meditative calm, now thrummed with a nervous curiosity. He offered a curt nod, a warrior's greeting, devoid of the elaborate courtesies usually exchanged within these peaceful walls. He carried with him the scent of the road, of sweat and steel, a scent utterly foreign to the cloistered monks. "Forgive my intrusion." Kawakami's voice was rough, like a stone grinding against another. "I bring news from beyond these mountains." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. The world outside is changing. He spoke of whispers of political upheaval, of shifting alliances amongst the daimyo, the powerful feudal lords who controlled the land. He spoke of rumors of war, of armies gathering like storm clouds on the horizon, threatening to break the fragile peace that had held for so long. His words painted a grim picture, a world far removed from the quiet seclusion of the monastery. The monks, accustomed to the unchanging rhythms of their daily rituals, listened with growing unease. The world they knew, the world they had sought refuge from, was changing, and the ripples of that change were reaching even their isolated sanctuary. For centuries, the samurai had been the backbone of Japan's feudal system. Their warrior culture, a blend of unwavering loyalty, martial discipline, and a strict code of honor, had shaped the nation's history. This period, marked by constant warfare and yet simultaneously a flourishing of arts and culture, was a complex tapestry, woven with threads of both violence and profound beauty. Kawakami's arrival was a stark reminder of this duality. While his very presence exuded an aura of danger, honed by years of conflict, there was also a subtle refinement in his mannerisms, a hint of something more than just a warrior. He spoke of the shifting political landscape with a surprising eloquence, his words betraying an intellect sharpened not just by the sword, but also by knowledge of the world beyond the battlefield. He was a walking embodiment of the surprising juxtapositions that defined the samurai era. A warrior, yes, but perhaps also something of a poet, an artist trapped within a soldier's shell. It was a subject of ongoing scholarly debate, the extent to which this warrior class influenced ancient Japanese art and aesthetics. Did the samurai's emphasis on discipline and precision seep into the delicate brushstrokes of a painting? Did their reverence for nature find expression in the carefully cultivated gardens of the aristocracy? These were questions that scholars continued to ponder, seeking to unravel the complex relationship between the warrior's way and the artistic spirit of ancient Japan. As Kawakami continued his grim pronouncements, a detail about his armor caught the eye. It looked suspiciously like it was made of recycled turtle shells. Was this some innovative form of sustainable warfare? Perhaps the turtles were voluntary donors. The thought was absurd, a momentary flicker of levity in the face of the unsettling news he brought. He adjusted his sword, a magnificent katana gleaming faintly in the dim light of the monastery's interior. One couldn't help but wonder if the sword had a name. Probably something fearsome and imposing. Or maybe, just maybe, it was called Mr. Stabby. The thought brought another fleeting smile, a nervous twitch at the corner of the lips. Unperturbed by the arrival of this seasoned warrior, the monastery cat, a fat ginger tabby, continued its nap near the hearth, completely indifferent to the tension in the room. It barely flicked an ear at Kawakami's pronouncements of impending war. Cats, it seemed, were immune to even the most potent samurai charisma. Kawakami's words hung heavy in the air, a stark contrast to the serenity that had prevailed only moments before. The whispers of change he brought were a harbinger of uncertain times, a challenge to the peaceful existence of the monastery, and a foreshadowing of the tumultuous events that lay ahead. The monks, their tranquil world shaken, were left to grapple with the implications of this unwelcome news, and to contemplate the role they would play in the changing world beyond their walls. The flickering candlelight painted dancing shadows on Kawakami's concerned face. I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. It felt like a betrayal, a shattering of generations of silence, but I couldn't bear the weight alone any longer. "There's something I need to tell you," I whispered, my voice barely audible above the crackling fire. Kawakami leaned closer, her warm brown eyes filled with genuine concern. "What troubles you, child? You know you can tell me anything." I took a deep breath, the scent of sandalwood incense filling my lungs. "It's about the shrine. There's more to it than anyone knows." Kawakami's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "There's a hidden shrine," I blurted out, the words tumbling from my lips like a dam had finally burst. "Within the monastery walls. It's been a secret passed down through generations of shrine maidens. My grandmother told me about it just before she passed." Kawakami's expression shifted from concern to disbelief. "A hidden shrine? But why would it be hidden?" "That's what I don't understand. All I know is that it's said to hold a power that could either save or destroy our village." I shivered, the weight of those words pressing down on me. Kawakami remained silent for a long moment, the firelight reflecting in her thoughtful eyes. "This is a heavy burden, child. Are you certain of this?" "My grandmother wouldn't lie," I said, clutching the worn silk pouch containing the key, the metal cool against my skin. "She gave me this. She said it's the key to the hidden shrine. She made me promise I'd protect it, protect the secret." We sat in silence, the gravity of the revelation hanging between us. I knew Kawakami, a scholar of local history, would understand the significance of this. She knew, as I did, that many ancient Japanese shrines and temples held sacred objects or relics believed to possess spiritual power, objects that were often guarded fiercely, their true nature shrouded in mystery. "This changes everything," Kawakami finally said, her voice hushed with awe and a touch of fear. "A hidden shrine. It's not unheard of. Some shrines were intentionally concealed, accessible only to specific individuals, often those of spiritual lineage." She paused, her mind clearly racing. "This adds a whole new dimension to the monastery's history, to our village's history." The idea of a hidden shrine resonated with a certain inexplicable logic. It brought to mind the stories whispered among the villagers, tales of miraculous healings, sudden storms, unexplained prosperity, and misfortune. Could these events be tied to the hidden power within the monastery walls? I've read accounts of similar hidden chambers in ancient temples. Kawakami continued, a flicker of excitement in her eyes. They were often believed to contain powerful objects, imbued with the spirit of kami, capable of influencing the natural world. But the thought of such power, potentially destructive power, resting in my hands terrified me. This secret, this duty, felt like a heavy cloak draped over my shoulders, stifling me. I longed for a simple life, a life beyond the rituals and responsibilities of the shrine. I yearned for freedom, for the chance to explore the world beyond our village walls, to experience life unbound by ancient traditions. But now, I don't want this, I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. This responsibility, it's too much. Kawakami reached out and gently squeezed my hand. I understand, child. It is a heavy burden. But it is also a great honor. Your ancestors entrusted you with this secret for a reason. But what if I'm not worthy? What if I make the wrong choice, unleash something terrible? We will face this together, Kawakami reassured me. We will learn more about this hidden shrine, about its purpose. We will uncover the truth. The thought of unraveling the mystery, of understanding the true nature of the hidden shrine, was both terrifying and exhilarating. It was a daunting task, one that clashed with my own desires, yet I couldn't deny the pull of the unknown, the call of my ancestral duty. There are scholars who dedicate their lives to studying these hidden spaces, Kawakami continued, her voice taking on a more academic tone. They debate the true nature and function of these shrines, the extent of their influence on village life. Some believe they were places of immense power, capable of influencing harvests and warding off disaster. Others argue they were simply repositories for sacred objects, symbolic representations of spiritual beliefs. Kawakami's words gave me a sliver of hope. Perhaps this hidden shrine wasn't a ticking time bomb, but a piece of history waiting to be understood. Perhaps by uncovering its secrets, I could not only fulfill my duty, but also find a way to reconcile it with my own aspirations. We will start with the village archives, Kawakami declared, a spark of determination in her eyes. There may be clues hidden within the old scrolls, fragments of forgotten knowledge that can shed light on this mystery. The path ahead was uncertain, shrouded in the same mystery as the hidden shrine itself. But with Kawakami by my side, I felt a flicker of courage ignite within me. Perhaps, just perhaps, This burden of duty wasn't a prison, but a key to understanding my heritage, my village, and ultimately myself. The weight hadn't lifted, but it felt different. It felt shared. And in that shared burden, I found a strange, unexpected strength. The emerald green stalks swayed gently in the late afternoon breeze, their delicate tips bowing in a silent, rhythmic dance. Each step I took through the flooded paddies sent ripples across the glassy surface, disturbing the reflections of the towering mountains in the distance. The air was thick with a scent of damp earth and growing things, a fragrance both familiar and strangely unsettling. A faint humming, like 1,000 tiny bells, seemed to emanate from the very heart of the rice plants themselves. Then, the whispers began. Faint at first, barely audible above the rustle of the wind through the leaves, they gradually grew in strength and clarity. Words, phrases, fragments of ancient songs, all weaving a tapestry of sound that resonated deep within my soul. They spoke of duty, of sacrifice, of a lineage stretching back through generations. They called to me by name, urging me to accept my destiny, the destiny of a shrine maiden. My ancestors, their voices carried on the wind, painted vibrant images in my mind's eye. I saw women clad in flowing white robes, performing ancient rituals amidst flickering lanterns and fragrant incense. I saw the reverence in their eyes, the unwavering devotion etched upon their faces. I saw myself among them, a continuation of a sacred tradition, a vessel for the spirits of the past. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and the world around me began to shift and distort. The green of the rice paddies intensified, becoming almost luminescent. The air shimmered with a strange, otherworldly light. Shadows danced at the periphery of my vision, swirling and coalescing into indistinct shapes. The whispers morphed into a chorus of voices, overlapping and intertwining, until I could no longer distinguish individual words. It was a cacophony of sound, a symphony of the spectral, that both terrified and exhilarated me. The visions intensified, a kaleidoscope of swirling light and shadow. I saw glimpses of ancient ceremonies, battles fought under a crimson sky, and spirits both benevolent and malevolent. Faces of long-dead relatives flashed before my eyes, their expressions ranging from serene acceptance to agonizing torment. The ground beneath my feet seemed to tremble, the very air vibrating with an unseen energy. I felt a hand on my shoulder, cold and ethereal, guiding me forward into the heart of the swirling vortex. My heart pounded in my chest, a drum against my ribs, my breath caught in my throat, a strangled gasp. I wanted to scream, to run, to escape the overwhelming onslaught of sensory input. But I was rooted to the spot, held captive by the power of the visions. The world around me dissolved into a chaotic blend of colors and sounds, and I felt myself falling, tumbling into an abyss of the unknown. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the maelstrom subsided. The swirling lights faded, the whispers died away, and the world slowly regained its familiar form. The green of the rice paddies seemed duller now, almost lifeless in comparison to the vibrant hues I had just witnessed. The air was still, heavy, with an almost palpable silence. I stood there, trembling, my knees weak, my mind reeling from the experience. The visions had left me shaken and uncertain. What had I just witnessed? Was it a glimpse into the spirit world? A message from my ancestors? Or simply a trick of the light? A figment of my overactive imagination? Ancient Japanese culture placed great emphasis on ancestral spirits and their influence on the living. Reverence for ancestors was a cornerstone of their belief system, shaping their rituals, customs, and everyday lives. The spirits of the departed were not seen as distant, ethereal beings, but rather as active participants in the world of the living, capable of offering guidance, protection, and even retribution. Shrines and temples were erected to honor these spirits, and elaborate ceremonies were performed to appease them and ensure their continued benevolence. My family had always spoken of our connection to the spiritual realm. Stories of past shrine maidens, women gifted with the ability to communicate with the spirits, were passed down through generations. These stories, once dismissed as mere folklore, now resonated with a newfound significance. Could I be one of them? Could I possess the same gift that my ancestors had wielded? The rice paddies themselves held a special significance in the spiritual landscape of ancient Japan. often seen as liminal spaces. They represented the boundary between the earthly realm and the otherworldly. The water, reflecting the sky above, symbolized the connection between the physical and the spiritual. The constant cycle of planting, growth, and harvest mirrored the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. It was no coincidence, I realized, that my visions had manifested in this very place. The rice paddies, a place of spiritual confluence, had served as a conduit for the voices of my ancestors. I took a deep breath, the scent of damp earth filling my lungs. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the paddies. The wind whispered through the rice stalks, a gentle caress against my skin. But this time, there were no voices, no visions, no swirling lights. Just the quiet rustling of the leaves, and the lingering sense of awe and wonder. The experience had left me with more questions than answers, but one thing was certain. I could no longer ignore the call of my ancestors. The whispers on the wind, the visions in the rice paddies had awakened something within me. A sense of purpose, a yearning for something more. I knew, deep in my heart, that my journey had just begun. The path of the Shrine Maiden lay before me, and I was ready to embrace it, no matter where it might lead. The flickering lamplight painted Kawakami's face with dancing shadows, his usual jovial expression replaced by a look of serious understanding. He poured more sake into my cup, the sound a soft counterpoint to the chirping crickets outside. "You carry a heavy burden, young one," he finally said, his voice low. "I see it in the tightness of your shoulders, the forced smile you wear for the elders." I didn't reply, just took a long draught of the warm sake, letting its heat spread through my chest. He was right, of course. The weight of expectation, the stifling tradition of the village, it all pressed down on me. A constant, suffocating presence. I was trapped, bound by duty and lineage, a gilded cage built by generations past. "There's another path," Kawakami continued, his eyes holding mine with an intensity that was both unsettling and intriguing. "A path beyond these rice paddies, beyond the suffocating grip of this village." He leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Come with me. Leave this life behind. We'll travel beyond the mountains, to places where duty and tradition hold no sway. A life of freedom, of adventure, a life of your own choosing." His words were like a spark to dry tinder, igniting a flame of rebellion within me. The thought of escape, of shedding the heavy cloak of responsibility, was intoxicating. To simply walk away, to choose my own destiny, the idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. I thought of the village, the faces of my family, the weight of their expectations. I thought of the training, the years of discipline, all leading to a life predetermined, a life I hadn't chosen. And then I thought of Kawakami's offer, the open road, the unknown, the path of rebellion. "What would we do?" I asked, my voice barely a breath. Kawakami smiled, a genuine smile this time, one that reached his eyes. "Whatever we choose. We could trade, explore, even become ronin, selling our swords to the highest bidder. The world is vast, young one, and full of possibilities. Possibilities you'll never see trapped within these walls." He painted a vivid picture of a life unbound, a life of adventure and self-discovery. He spoke of bustling cities, snow-capped mountains, and vast, shimmering oceans. A world beyond the narrow confines of my village. A world where I could forge my own path. I wrestled with a decision. The weight of tradition battling against the allure of freedom. My mind was a tempest, torn between duty and desire. On one hand, the village, my family, the life I had always known. On the other, the intoxicating promise of the unknown, the chance to finally break free. Kawakami's offer forced me to confront a fundamental question, one that has resonated throughout history, a question scholars still debate to this day. What role does individual agency play in a society steeped in tradition and rigid societal expectations? During the samurai period, the concept of individual freedom was often overshadowed by the demands of duty and loyalty. Historians argue about the extent to which individuals could truly exercise free will, especially within the rigid hierarchical structure of feudal Japan. Some argue that individual choices were severely limited, dictated by social obligations and the fear of dishonor. Others maintain that despite the pressures of conformity, individuals still found ways to exert their agency, making choices that defied societal norms, albeit often at great personal cost. My own predicament mirrored this historical debate. Was I truly free to choose my own path, or was I merely a puppet dancing to the strings of tradition? Could I defy the expectations of my family, my village, and forge my own destiny? Kawakami's offer presented a stark choice, a chance to test the boundaries of individual agency against the formidable weight of societal expectations. The night wore on, filled with the murmur of crickets and the quiet clinking of our sake cups. Kawakami didn't press me for an answer, allowing me the space to grapple with the implications of his proposal. He simply sat across from me, a quiet presence, a beacon of rebellion in the stillness of the night. The temptation was almost overwhelming. To escape the stifling confines of the village, to embrace a life of freedom and adventure, it was a dream I had barely dared to acknowledge, a dream that Kawakami had now brought into sharp focus. But the thought of abandoning my duty, of turning my back on my family and my village, filled me with a deep sense of unease. I was torn, caught in a web of conflicting emotions. The lure of freedom battled against the ingrained sense of obligation, a conflict that raged within me like a wildfire. Kawakami, sensing my internal struggle, placed a hand on my shoulder. "Think carefully, young one," he said, his voice gentle. "This is not a decision to be taken lightly, but know this. Whatever you choose, I will respect your decision." His words, spoken with such genuine concern, resonated deeply within me. He wasn't trying to coerce me, wasn't trying to force me down a particular path. He was simply offering me a choice, a chance to break free from the constraints of tradition and embrace a different kind of life. The weight of the decision pressed down on me, a heavy burden. The path of rebellion, though tempting, was fraught with uncertainty. But the path of tradition, the path I had always known, felt like a slow, suffocating death. The first rays of dawn began to filter through the cracks in the wooden walls, painting the room in a soft, ethereal light. The time for a decision was fast approaching. I looked at Kawakami, his face etched with a mixture of anticipation and understanding. "Give me some time," I finally said, my voice hoarse. "I need to think." He nodded, a knowing look in his eyes. "Take all the time you need," he replied. "The path of rebellion is not for the faint of heart, but it is a path that can lead to a life of true freedom." The flickering candlelight danced across the weathered face of the head monk, casting long shadows that stretched and twisted like the doubts swirling in my mind. He sat serenely on a zabuton cushion, his aged hands clasped over a worn wooden staff. The air in his small room, tucked away in the deepest part of the temple, was thick with the scent of sandalwood and something else, something ancient and unsettling. "You seek answers, child," he began, his voice a low rumble that resonated deep within the wooden walls. "But some questions are best left undisturbed. Some doors are better left unopened." I shifted nervously, the silk of my ceremonial robes rustling against the straw mat. "Kawakami-sama, he offered me a way out," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. "A chance to live a normal life, away from this duty." The monk's eyes, though clouded with age, held a surprising sharpness. Kawakami is a man of ambition, a man of the world. He sees only the surface of things. He does not understand the currents that flow beneath, the ancient ties that bind us. He paused, his gaze fixed on the flickering candle flame. "The Shrine Maiden is not merely a title, child. It is a lineage, a sacred duty passed down through generations. It is the anchor that protects this village, the shield against the darkness." "But the darkness feels distant," I countered, my voice barely a breath. "A story told to frighten children." The monk's hand trembled as he reached out and gently took mine. His touch was surprisingly strong, belying his frail appearance. "The stories are warnings, child, echoes of truths long past. They remind us of the price of forgetting." He released my hand and leaned back against the wall, his eyes closing as if peering into the distant past. "Generations ago," he began, his voice taking on a faraway quality, "a great darkness threatened to consume this land. A plague, they called it, a creeping shadow that stole the life from the very earth. Villages perished, families were scattered, and hope withered like autumn leaves. It was then, in the depths of despair, that the first Shrine Maiden emerged." He opened his eyes, fixing me with a penetrating gaze. Through her connection to the sacred mountain, she pleaded with the spirits, offering her life force to appease their wrath. The plague receded, the land began to heal, and the village was spared. A prophecy was born that day, carved into the very stones of this temple. Should the lineage of the shrine maiden be broken, the darkness shall return and the village will be consumed. His words hung heavy in the air, a stark counterpoint to Kawakami's offer of freedom. A life beyond the confines of the village, a life free from the weight of duty. It had seemed so tempting, so alluring, but now the monk's warning cast a long shadow over that dream. The price of my freedom, it seemed, could be the destruction of everything I held dear. The monks of this temple, he continued, his voice regaining its strength, have served as advisors to the shrine maidens for centuries. We have guided them, protected them, and ensured the continuation of the lineage. We are the keepers of the prophecy, the guardians of this village's fate. He looked at me, his gaze searching, probing. Do you understand the weight of your decision, child? My head swam with the weight of his words, the history, the prophecy. Kawakami's offer, once a beacon of hope, now seemed like a dangerous temptation. A siren's call luring me towards a rocky shore. I don't know, I stammered, my voice choked with emotion. I just want a normal life. The monk sighed, a sound like the rustling of ancient scrolls. A normal life is a precious gift, child. But sometimes, destiny calls upon us to sacrifice that normalcy for something greater. To protect the ones we love. To honor the sacrifices of those who came before us. He leaned forward, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and understanding. Think carefully, child. The choice is yours, but the consequences will be borne by all. He fell silent, leaving me alone with my thoughts, the prophecy echoing in my ears. The flickering candlelight seemed to mock me, casting dancing shadows that twisted and shifted, reflecting the turmoil within my heart. Freedom, it seemed, was not simply a matter of opening a door and stepping through. It was a burden, a responsibility, a price to be paid. And the price, in this case, might be higher than I could bear. The weight of the village, the weight of the prophecy, the weight of generations rested upon my shoulders. And I, a young girl yearning for a simple life, was caught in the middle, torn between duty and desire, between the whispers of freedom and the monk's solemn warning. The air hung thick and heavy, laden with the scent of burning sage and the unspoken anxieties of the gathered villagers. Their faces, weathered and etched with the stories of generations past, were a tapestry of hope and sorrow. I stood before the council of elders, the weight of their gazes pressing upon me like a physical burden. The flickering flames of the ceremonial fire cast long, dancing shadows that seemed to mimic the turbulent emotions swirling within me. My bare feet felt the cool earth, a grounding connection to the only home I had ever known, a home I was about to leave. The elder, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, stepped forward. His eyes, the color of faded turquoise, held a depth of wisdom that intimidated and comforted in equal measure. He held a woven basket filled with earth from the four corners of the village lands. Take this, he rasped, his voice thick with emotion, and may it remind you of the soil that nourished you, the land that cradled your ancestors. He placed the basket in my hands, its weight surprisingly substantial, a tangible representation of the ties that bound me to this place. A young woman, her eyes brimming with tears, stepped forward next. She offered a small, intricately carved wooden bird, its wings outstretched in a gesture of flight. May this guide you on your journey, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. May it remind you that even though you soar to distant realms, you will always have a place to return to. The bird felt warm in my palm, its smooth surface a comfort against the uncertainty that gnawed at me. Each villager approached, their offerings as varied as their hopes and fears. A pouch of dried herbs for protection, a hand-woven scarf for warmth, a smooth riverstone for courage. Each gift, no matter how small, was imbued with a deeper meaning, a silent prayer for my safety and success. One elder, his hands gnarled with age, placed a single perfect feather in my hair. The feather of the Sky Wanderer, he murmured, his voice barely audible. May it grant you the wisdom to navigate the unseen paths and the strength to face the unknown. The ceremony continued, a rhythmic dance of tradition and farewell. The shaman began to chant, his voice a low, resonant hum that vibrated through the air, weaving a tapestry of sound that seemed to connect the physical world to the spiritual. The villagers joined in, their voices rising and falling in a haunting melody that echoed the complexities of their emotions. The scent of burning sage intensified, creating a hazy veil that separated me from the familiar world and hinted at the mysteries that lay ahead. As the ceremony reached its crescendo, I felt a profound sense of being torn. The spirit world, with its ethereal whispers and boundless possibilities, called to me with an irresistible allure. The path of freedom, the chance to explore the unknown and discover my true purpose, beckoned me forward. Yet, the burden of duty, the weight of responsibility to my people, pressed upon my soul, anchoring me to the present. The villagers' hopes and fears, their silent prayers and tangible offerings, were a heavy cloak I wore, a constant reminder of the trust they had placed in me. I thought of the stories I had heard since childhood, tales of those who had ventured into the spirit world, some returning with wisdom and power, others lost forever in its labyrinthine depths. The farewell ceremony itself, with its specific rituals and offerings, was a testament to the delicate balance between the physical and spiritual realms. The earth from the four corners of the village, a symbol of groundedness and connection to the physical world. The wooden bird, a representation of flight and the journey into the unknown. The herbs for protection, the scarf for warmth, the stone for courage, all tangible reminders of the human need for security and support in the face of uncertainty. Even the feather of the sky wanderer, a seemingly insignificant object, held deep symbolic meaning, representing the wisdom and strength required to navigate the unseen paths of the spirit world. The shaman's chanting intensified, reaching a fever pitch that resonated deep within my bones. The villagers swayed to the rhythm, their faces illuminated by the flickering firelight. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the moment, allowing the weight of tradition and the power of their collective energy to wash over me. I felt a surge of conflicting emotions, gratitude, fear, excitement, sorrow, a swirling vortex of feelings that threatened to overwhelm me. When the chanting finally subsided, a profound silence descended upon the village. The air felt charged with a strange energy, a palpable sense of anticipation. The elder stepped forward once more, his eyes locking onto mine. "Go now," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "Go, with the blessings of your people. May the spirits guide you, and may you return to us with the wisdom and strength to lead us into a brighter future." I took a deep breath, the weight of his words settling deep within my soul. I looked at the faces of the villagers, their eyes mirroring my own complex emotions. I knew that this farewell was not an ending, but a beginning, a stepping stone on a path that would lead me far from the familiar, into the unknown depths of the spirit world. And though the burden of duty weighed heavily upon me, I also felt a surge of excitement, a sense of purpose that propelled me forward. With one last look at the faces of those I loved, I turned and walked towards the edge of the forest, the whispers of the spirit world beckoning me onward, into the embrace of the unknown. The air shimmered, the scent of cherry blossoms turning sharp and metallic. The present dissolved, the familiar wooden walls of my grandmother's house replaced by a swirling vortex of color. Two paths, distinct and separate, unfurled before me like scrolls. In the first, I stood beside Kawakami, hand in his. The wind whipped through my hair as we crested a hill overlooking a vast, unknown land. His eyes, bright with excitement, met mine. We were travelers, adventurers, our lives a tapestry woven with the thrill of discovery. We explored bustling marketplaces in far-off cities, climbed mountains that scraped the sky, and sailed across oceans under a canopy of stars. There were moments of breathless joy, laughter echoing in ancient ruins, the warmth of his hand in mine. But there were shadows, too, the glint of steel in a darkened alley, the gnawing uncertainty of the unknown, the bitter taste of loss as faces we cherished faded from our path. This path pulsed with life, vibrant and dangerous, a dance on the edge of a knife. The second path shimmered with a different kind of light. It was quieter, gentler. I stood in the heart of my village, clad in the white robes of a shrine maiden. The familiar scent of incense filled the air. The villagers looked to me with respect, their faces etched with gratitude. Years spun by in a cycle of ritual and prayer, marked by the changing seasons. I became a pillar of the community, a source of comfort and guidance. The village prospered under my protection, safe from the storms that raged beyond its borders. But a quiet ache settled in my heart. I watched the years drift by like fallen leaves, each one carrying a piece of my own desires. I witnessed weddings, births, and deaths, the cycle of life continuing without me truly participating in it. My days were filled with duty, but my nights were filled with a lingering emptiness. And then I saw him, Kawakami, a fleeting figure on the horizon of a distant land. His face was blurred, etched with the lines of time and experience. He was a stranger, living a life untouched by my presence. He moved through the world unburdened, his path his own, a life I could have shared but had chosen to relinquish. The image faded, leaving behind a hollow echo in the vision's silence. The vision receded, leaving me breathless on the tatami mats, the scent of cherry blossoms lingering faintly in the air. My grandmother's worried face swam into focus. The future, once a distant whisper, now felt like a heavy weight on my shoulders. The question of whether prophecies and visions genuinely influence the course of history remains a topic of vigorous debate among scholars. Some argue that these purported glimpses into the future are nothing more than psychological phenomena, the product of a fertile imagination or subconscious desires. They point to the often vague and symbolic nature of such visions, suggesting that their interpretation is subjective and easily manipulated. These scholars contend that individuals, believing themselves bound by fate, may subconsciously act in ways that fulfill the prophecy, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. They emphasize the importance of individual agency and the power of choice in shaping one's destiny. Other historians, however, take a different view. They argue that prophecies and visions, even if shrouded in metaphor and symbolism, can offer genuine insights into future possibilities. They point to instances where historical figures, guided by prophecies or visions, made decisions that had profound and lasting consequences. They suggested these precognitive experiences, whether originating from divine intervention, unconscious intuition, or some other unknown source, can act as catalysts, nudging individuals towards particular courses of action. These historians acknowledge the difficulty in verifying the accuracy of such visions and the potential for misinterpretation, but they maintain that dismissing them entirely would be a mistake, potentially overlooking a significant factor in understanding the complexities of human history. The debate continues, with no easy answers. The weight of the two paths, the vibrant adventure and the quiet service, settled heavily upon me. Which future would I choose? Would I embrace the unknown with Kawakami, accepting the risks and rewards that came with a life unbound? Or would I dedicate myself to my village, finding fulfillment in duty and sacrifice, knowing that I had protected those I loved? The choice was mine, and the future, whatever it held, awaited my decision. My voice, thin and reedy, cut through the hushed expectancy of the village square. It trembled, a fragile butterfly against the stoic faces surrounding me, but the words, once spoken, hung in the air, unwavering. I will stay. The collective intake of breath was almost audible. A ripple of murmurs passed through the assembled villagers, like wind rustling through dry leaves. I saw surprise, disappointment, and a strange, muted understanding reflected in their eyes. My gaze locked with Kawakami's. His face, weathered and etched with the wisdom of years, was a mask of quiet sorrow. He offered a slow, almost imperceptible nod, his eyes holding mine with a depth that spoke volumes. He knew the paths ahead, the one I had chosen and the one I had forsaken. He knew the weight of duty, the suffocating embrace of tradition. My heart ached with the phantom pain of a life unlived, a freedom untasted. The mountains beckoned in the distance, their peaks shrouded in mist, promising adventure and escape. But the faces of the villagers, etched with generations of toil and reliance on the old ways, held me fast. The weight of their expectations, the unspoken pleas in their eyes, were chains stronger than any physical bonds. I had made my choice. Duty over freedom. Tradition over rebellion. Kawakami turned his horse, the reins held loosely in his calloused hands. He offered no further words, no grand pronouncements. His silence, heavy with unspoken understanding, was more profound than any speech. The horse shifted, its hooves stirring the dust of the square, and as he rode away, the world seemed to hold its breath. The firewood seller, who had been a constant presence throughout the tumultuous days, a Greek chorus of lamentations and warnings, was strangely silent. His usual cries, the rhythmic chanting that had become the soundtrack of our village life, were absent. The silence that followed Kawakami's departure was not the peaceful quiet of a sleeping village, but an unnerving, expectant hush. It was the silence of a held breath, a silence pregnant with the unknown. The air crackled with unspoken anxieties. The villagers dispersed slowly, their movements hesitant, their conversations hushed. The weight of my decision pressed down on me, a tangible force that made it difficult to breathe. I had chosen the familiar path, the one worn smooth by generations of ancestors, but the unexplored wilderness of the other path tugged at the edges of my mind, a constant reminder of what could have been. In the days that followed, the firewood seller's silence grew more pronounced, more unsettling. His absence from the daily rhythm of village life was a gaping void. He had been a fixture, his cries a familiar backdrop to our days, and his silence was a constant, unnerving reminder of the change that had swept through our village. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a silence that whispered of unspoken fears, of a future shrouded in uncertainty. The village elders, their faces etched with the wisdom of ages, spoke of duty and honor, echoing the values that had shaped our society for centuries. They spoke of the importance of upholding tradition, of preserving the delicate balance that held our world together. These were the values I had chosen, the values that had guided my decision. Yet, in the quiet of the night, as I lay awake listening to the silence, I couldn't shake the feeling that something precious had been lost. During the samurai period of Japan, duty and honor were the cornerstones of society. These values permeated every aspect of life, dictating social interactions, shaping individual choices, and influencing the course of history. For a samurai, duty was paramount, often taking precedence over personal desires, even life itself. Honor was the currency of their existence, the measure of their worth. To betray one's duty, or to tarnish one's honor, was considered the ultimate disgrace, a stain that could never be erased. This rigid adherence to duty and honor, while contributing to social stability and a strong sense of collective identity, often came at a personal cost. Individual desires, aspirations, and freedoms were frequently sacrificed at the altar of societal expectations. The path of duty was not always the path of happiness, but it was the path that was expected, the path that was revered. I walked that path now, my steps heavy with the weight of responsibility. The freedom of the mountains, the allure of the unknown, remained a distant, bittersweet memory. I had chosen duty, chosen tradition, chosen the path that had been laid out for me by generations of ancestors. I had embraced the silence, the unspoken expectations, the weight of responsibility, and as I looked out at the faces of the villagers, I saw a reflection of myself. A reflection of a life lived in the shadow of duty, a life bound by the chains of tradition. The firewood seller's silence echoed the silence within me, a silence born of acceptance, of resignation, of the quiet understanding that some paths, once chosen, cannot be undone. The mountains remained in the distance, a constant reminder of the path not taken, a symbol of the freedom I had relinquished. But I had made my choice, and now I would live with the consequences, embracing the silence, carrying the weight of my decision, and walking the path chosen, no matter how arduous, no matter how lonely. The silence of the firewood seller was a constant companion, a testament to the sacrifices made, the price of duty, the weight of tradition in a world where individual desires were often silenced by the demands of a greater good. The heavy stone door groaned as I pushed it inward, revealing a passage bathed in an ethereal, pulsing light. Dust motes danced in the beams, each a tiny spark in the otherwise oppressive darkness. Stepping inside, the weight of the world seemed to settle on my shoulders, but not in a crushing way. It was a familiar weight, a burden I had carried since the day I was born, a burden I now fully embraced. The air within the shrine crackled with an energy I could almost taste, a potent force that hummed against my skin. Shadows stretched and recoiled, whispering secrets in a language I didn't understand, yet somehow I knew. They spoke of ancient pacts, of sacrifices made, of a power lying dormant, waiting to be awakened. It was a power I was meant to wield, a power I was destined to control. My heart, heavy with the knowledge of what I had to do, was strangely at peace. This was my fate, the path laid out for me since time immemorial, and I would not shy away from it. I was a protector, a shield for my village, and I would fulfill my duty, no matter the cost. This place, this hidden shrine, was a nexus of power, a place where the veil between worlds felt thin. I could feel the energy thrumming beneath my feet, resonating with something deep within my soul. It was an ancient power, older than the village itself, older than the mountains that cradled it. It was raw, untamed, and yet it felt familiar. Like a forgotten memory resurfacing, a piece of myself I hadn't known was missing. The whispers intensified, swirling around me, urging me forward, deeper into the heart of the shrine. They promised strength, they promised protection, but they also hinted at a great sacrifice, a sacrifice I was prepared to make. The cries of the firewood seller, his desperate pleas for help, echoed faintly in my mind, then faded, replaced by a strange mix of grief and liberation. Grief for the life he lost, for the innocence stolen from our village, but also liberation. His death, as tragic as it was, had solidified my resolve. It had shown me the true extent of the darkness that threatened us, the urgency of my mission. There was no more room for doubt, no more time for hesitation. I had to act, and I had to act now. I continued deeper into the shrine, my footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. The walls were covered in intricate carvings, depicting scenes of ancient rituals, of people offering prayers and sacrifices to unseen deities. I remembered stories my grandmother used to tell, tales of sacred spaces, of mountains and forests imbued with spiritual energy, places where the gods walked among men, where miracles were commonplace, and where the fate of the world hung in the balance. She spoke of rituals, of purification ceremonies and offerings made to appease the spirits and harness their power. It struck me that this shrine was one such place, a place where the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual blurred, where the echoes of ancient ceremonies still lingered in the air. It was a humbling thought, to be standing in a place so steeped in history, so charged with power. The path led me downwards, spiraling into the earth, the air growing colder and the whispers more insistent. The pulsing light intensified, illuminating a large circular chamber at the bottom of the stairs. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, and on it rested a single object, a gleaming, ornate dagger. Its hilt was crafted from polished bone, inlaid with shimmering gemstones, and the blade, honed to razor sharpness, pulsed with the same ethereal light that filled the shrine. This was it, the key to the power, the weapon I was meant to wield. I approached the pedestal, my hand outstretched, drawn to the dagger by an unseen force. As my fingers brushed against the cool bone of the hilt, a jolt of energy surged through my body, knocking me back. Visions flooded my mind, flashes of battles fought long ago, of heroes and monsters, of sacrifices made and victories won. I saw the village in flames, engulfed by shadows, and I saw myself standing defiant, the dagger blazing in my hand, pushing back the darkness. The visions faded, leaving me breathless, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew then, without a shadow of a doubt, what I had to do. This dagger was more than just a weapon. It was a conduit, a link to the ancient power that slumbered within the shrine. It was the key to awakening that power, to channeling it, to using it to protect my village. But wielding such power came at a price. The whispers had warned me of this, of the sacrifice that must be made. I understood now what that sacrifice was. It was not a physical sacrifice, not an offering of blood or bone, but a sacrifice of self. A surrender of my own will, a merging with the ancient power, becoming one with the shrine itself. It meant relinquishing a part of myself, a part of my humanity, to become something more, something greater. It meant becoming the protector, the shield, the guardian of my people. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward once more, my resolve unwavering. I grasped the hilt of the dagger, the cold bone smooth against my palm. This time, there was no resistance, no shock. Instead, a warmth spread through my body, a feeling of connection, of belonging. The dagger hummed in my hand, resonating with the power within me, the power within the shrine. The whispers faded, replaced by a single, clear voice, echoing in my mind. It was the voice of the shrine, the voice of the ancient power, and it spoke my name. It welcomed me, it embraced me, it claimed me as its own. And in that moment, I was no longer just a girl from a small village. I was the guardian, the protector, the awakened power of the shrine. I was the shield that would stand against the darkness, the blade that would cut through the shadows, the hope that would guide my people to safety. The cries of the firewood seller were a distant memory, replaced by the burning resolve in my heart. I was ready. The shrine had awakened, and so had I. The scent of cherry blossom no longer held the same innocent joy it once did. Years, like fallen petals carried on the wind, had scattered the carefree days of my youth. Now the blossoms marked another spring, another cycle of rituals, another year spent safeguarding the village as its shrine maiden. My hands, once clumsy with a wooden sword, now moved with practiced grace in the sacred dances, weaving wards against the unseen whispers that slithered on the edges of our world. The villagers bowed low as I passed, their faces etched with reverence, their voices hushed with respect. They brought offerings of rice and sake, seeking blessings and guidance. They trusted me, relied on me, their hopes intertwined with the threads of my duty. But in the echoing silence of the monastery, after the last prayer had faded and the flickering lanterns cast long, dancing shadows, I was alone. Utterly, irrevocably alone. The weight of their faith, a comforting warmth at times, more often felt like a heavy cloak, stifling the breath from my lungs. Every decision, every word, every action was scrutinized, measured against the unwavering expectations of my role. Could they ever truly know me? The girl beneath the ceremonial robes, the girl who dreamt not of divine pronouncements but of laughter echoing through sun-drenched fields? Sometimes, when the wind sighed through the bamboo grove, I swore I could hear it. Kawakami's laughter, bright and unrestrained, bouncing off the unseen walls of the monastery's empty alleys. A phantom echo of a path not taken, a life lived in the vibrant embrace of the world, not secluded within these sacred walls. The memory of his calloused hand brushing against mine as he taught me the proper grip on a katana, the mischievous glint in his eye as he regaled me with tales of his travels, these were the ghosts that haunted the quiet corners of my existence. They were a bittersweet ache, a constant reminder of the choices I'd made, the sacrifices I'd offered at the altar of duty. I had chosen this path, hadn't I? Chosen the whispers of the spirits over the warmth of human companionship, the solemnity of ritual over the exhilaration of adventure. Had I truly chosen, or had I simply allowed myself to be molded by the unseen hand of societal expectation, shaped by the whispers of tradition that permeated every aspect of our lives? The question, like a restless spirit, lingered in the stillness of the night, refusing to be banished. The scrolls, filled with ancient wisdom and the weight of generations past, offered no answers, only more questions. They spoke of duty, of sacrifice, of the sacred role of the shrine maiden in maintaining the delicate balance between the human and spirit worlds. But they were silent on the cost, the quiet erosion of the self, the slow suffocation of individual desires beneath the mantle of societal responsibility. Even now, years later, historians still debate the psychological impact of such societal expectations on individuals in ancient Japan. Some argue that the rigid structure provided a sense of stability and purpose, a framework within which individuals could find meaning and belonging. Others contend that the suppression of individual expression and the relentless pressure to conform led to a profound sense of alienation and inner turmoil. They point to the prevalence of melancholic themes in classical literature, the emphasis on duty and self-sacrifice, as evidence of the hidden cost of societal harmony. Did the women who came before me, the generations of shrine maidens who walked these hallowed halls, hear similar echoes in the wind? Did they, too, wrestle with the conflicting desires of the heart and the unyielding demands of tradition? Did they find solace in their sacred duties? Or did they, like me, sometimes long for a life beyond the confines of the shrine? A life where laughter was not a phantom echo but a vibrant living presence. The moon, a silver disk in the inky sky, cast its pale light across the courtyard, illuminating the ancient stones worn smooth by the passage of countless feet. I closed my eyes, drawing a deep breath, the scent of incense clinging to the air. The whispers of the spirits swirled around me, their voices a constant murmur beneath the surface of the world. My duty, my burden, my solace. And yet, even in the midst of the sacred whispers, I could still hear it. The faintest echo of laughter, carried on the wind from a distant alley, a reminder of a path not taken, a life unlived, a life that, even now, whispered its siren song in the quiet corners of my heart. The wind rustled through the emerald rice paddies, a gentle susurrus that carried more than just the sound of swaying stalks. It whispered stories, fragments of legends carried on the breeze. Tales of a wandering warrior, a silent guardian who roamed the land, his sword a shield for the helpless, his presence a balm to the afflicted. They spoke of a man who faced down tyranny, who challenged injustice, who defended the weak against the strong. The villagers spoke of him in hushed tones, their voices laced with reverence and gratitude. They called him the protector, the silent wind, the shadow of justice. And in those whispered tales I heard echoes of Kawakami. His spirit, it seemed, had not vanished with his physical form. It had woven itself into the very fabric of this land, carried on the wind, etched in the hearts of those he'd touched. His legacy wasn't carved in stone or bronze, but in the living memory of a grateful people. It was a legacy more enduring than any monument, a testament to a life lived with purpose and integrity. It resonated with the rhythm of the land, a quiet hum beneath the symphony of nature. The stories changed slightly from village to village, embellished, romanticized, but the core remained the same, a warrior who embodied righteousness, a silent protector who walked among them. I stood there, ankle-deep in the cool mud, the wind whispering secrets in my ear, and I understood. Kawakami's path, the path of service, the path of duty, wasn't a cage. It was a calling. It was a choice, a conscious decision to dedicate one's life to something larger than oneself. And in that dedication, there was a freedom I hadn't understood before. A freedom from the petty concerns that had once consumed me. A freedom from the endless pursuit of fleeting pleasures. A freedom from the tyranny of self. I had sought freedom in abandoning my duty, in shedding the responsibilities that had felt like chains binding me. I had sought it in the vast emptiness of the wandering life, believing that true liberation lay in detachment, in severing ties, in existing outside the confines of obligation. But I was wrong. True freedom, I realized as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, wasn't about escape. It wasn't about running away. It was about finding meaning, about embracing the responsibilities that gave life purpose. It was about discovering the quiet power that resides in service, the wisdom that blossoms only when one is deeply rooted, connected to the earth, to the community, to a purpose greater than oneself. A smile touched my lips. The rice paddies stretched before me, a vast expanse of green whispering secrets of the past, of courage, of sacrifice, of a warrior's enduring spirit. And in those whispers I heard a call, not to abandon my duty but to redefine it, not to run from responsibility but to embrace it, to find my own path of service, my own way to contribute to the world, to leave my own mark, however small, on the tapestry of existence. The villagers, too, they understood this. Their lives were interwoven with the land, with the cycle of planting and harvesting, with the shared responsibility of maintaining the intricate network of irrigation that sustained them. They understood the quiet dignity of labor, the profound satisfaction of nurturing life from the earth. They knew the stories of their ancestors, passed down through generations, reminding them of their roots, their history, their shared identity. Storytelling, I knew, was more than just entertainment. It was the lifeblood of their culture, a way of preserving history, transmitting values, teaching lessons, and reminding themselves of who they were and where they came from. In a world without written records, these oral traditions served as living archives, binding the community together and providing a sense of continuity across generations. Just as the rice paddies whispered tales of Kawakami, so too did the villagers gather in the evenings, sharing stories around flickering lanterns, tales of bravery, of cunning, of resilience in the face of adversity, tales of mythical creatures, of wise elders, of mischievous spirits. They spoke of harvests past and prayed for bountiful harvests to come. They recounted the legends of their ancestors, their voices weaving a rich tapestry of history and tradition. These stories, passed down from generation to generation, were more than just entertainment. They were a vital thread in the fabric of their culture, a way of preserving their history, transmitting their values, and reinforcing the bonds that held their community together. And in those shared stories, I found a reflection of my own journey. The wandering warrior, the protector of the innocent, the silent guardian, these were not just characters in a legend. They were archetypes, reflections of the human spirit's innate yearning for justice, for compassion, for meaning. They were reminders that even in the face of adversity, even in the darkest of times, there is always the potential for courage, for kindness, for hope. The wind continued to whisper through the rice paddies, its voice a gentle reminder of the interconnectedness of all things. The past, the present, the future, all intertwined, woven together like the strands of a delicate tapestry. And as I stood there, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I had found my freedom, not in escape, but in acceptance. Not in detachment, but in connection. Not in abandoning my duty, but in finding meaning within it. The rice paddies, the wind, the stories, they had all whispered their wisdom, and finally I had heard. The journey wasn't over, not by a long shot. But now I knew where to go, and more importantly, I knew why. The emerald green of the rice paddies, once so vibrant and new, began to soften, to mellow into the rich, warm hues of gold. The air, thick and humid with the promise of summer, thinned and cooled, carrying the scent of drying earth and ripening grain. The change was gradual, subtle at first, like the shifting shadows on the shrine steps, but undeniable. Just as the seasons turned, so too did something within me. The heavy weight of duty, once a burden I bore with gritted teeth, had settled, becoming a source of strength, a grounding force in the ever-turning cycle of life. The path of the shrine maiden, once daunting and uncertain, now felt like a familiar, comforting embrace. It was a path paved with tradition and ritual, with quiet contemplation and the gentle rhythm of prayer. It was a path that led me closer to the heart of my village, closer to the spirits of my ancestors, and closer to a peace I hadn't known existed. The wind, once a playful whisper through the bamboo groves, now carried a deeper resonance, a murmur of gratitude from the land and its people. The rustling leaves seemed to sing of a bountiful harvest, a testament to the blessings bestowed upon us. The villagers' voices, once tinged with anxiety and uncertainty, now resonated with a harmonious peace. Their laughter echoed through the valley, light and carefree, a melody that filled my own heart with joy. I saw it in their eyes, the quiet trust, the deep respect, the unspoken understanding that bound us together. They no longer looked at me with the wide-eyed wonder of a child gazing upon something unknown. They saw me as one of their own, a guardian of their traditions, a keeper of their peace. I was the bridge between the earthly and the spiritual, the conduit through which the blessings flowed. The fear that once clung to me like a shadow had dissipated, replaced by a quiet confidence, a serene strength that echoed the resilience of my ancestors. I no longer worried about the future, about the unpredictable whims of nature, or the unknown challenges that lay ahead. I embraced the future, not with naive optimism, but with the grounded acceptance of someone who understood the cyclical nature of life, the ebb and flow of joy and sorrow, of abundance and scarcity. I knew that challenges would come, just as the seasons changed, but I also knew that I had the strength within me to face them, the strength rooted in the traditions of my ancestors, the strength nurtured by the quiet peace of the shrine. The rituals that once felt rote and mechanical now held a profound meaning, each gesture, each word, a connection to the past, a bridge to the future. The cleansing of the shrine, the offering of prayers, the lighting of the sacred lanterns, these were not just tasks to be completed, but acts of devotion, expressions of gratitude, affirmations of my commitment to the path I had chosen. The silence of the shrine, once intimidating, now offered solace, a sanctuary where I could commune with the spirits, where I could draw strength from the ancient wisdom that permeated the very stones. The gentle flickering of the lanterns cast dancing shadows on the walls, creating an ethereal atmosphere, a space where the veil between the worlds seemed thin, where the whispers of the ancestors could be heard in the rustling of the leaves, in the murmuring of the wind. The changing seasons became a metaphor for my own inner transformation. The vibrant green of spring, the time of new beginnings, mirrored the initial excitement, the nervous anticipation I felt when I first embarked on this path. The fiery heat of summer, a time of growth and maturation, reflected the challenges I faced, the trials that tempered my spirit. And now, as autumn painted the landscape in hues of gold and crimson, I felt a sense of fulfillment, a quiet joy in the harvest of my efforts, in the peace I had found within myself. I knew that winter would come, a time of dormancy, a time of reflection, a time when the world would be blanketed in snow and silence. But I no longer feared the cold, the darkness. I knew that beneath the surface, life continued, waiting patiently for the return of spring. Just as the seeds lay dormant in the frozen earth, waiting for the warmth of the sun to awaken them, so too would my spirit rest and rejuvenate, gathering strength for the next cycle of growth and change. The changing seasons had taught me that life was a continuous journey, a spiral of growth and transformation, and that true peace lay not in resisting the changes, but in embracing them, in finding the strength and resilience to adapt and to thrive, just as the rice paddies adapted to the changing seasons, transforming from vibrant green to rich gold, providing sustenance and life to the village. And in that cycle, in that transformation, I found my own peace, the quiet, enduring peace of the shrine maiden. The wind carried the scent of pine and distant rain as a figure, stooped and leaning heavily on a weathered staff, emerged from the swirling mist. His clothes, once fine silk, were now tattered and stained, clinging to his thin frame. But even through the dust and fatigue, I recognized the familiar glint in his eyes, a spark of mischief that even years of hardship couldn't extinguish. The slight upturn of his lips, the almost imperceptible arch of an eyebrow, it was Kawakami Gensai, returned at last. He moved with a stiffness that spoke of old wounds and long journeys. His face etched with the lines of experience, a map of the miles he'd traveled. A jagged scar bisected his left eyebrow, a silent testament to some forgotten battle. He reached the monastery steps and paused, drawing a deep, rattling breath. For a moment, I thought he might collapse, but he straightened, a flicker of his old defiance returning to his gaze. "Forgive my intrusion, master," he rasped, his voice rougher than I remembered, but laced with the same gentle sarcasm. "I seem to have misplaced my palanquin somewhere between Edo and, well, everywhere else, really." My heart leaped with a mixture of joy and trepidation. Kawakami, after all these years, the man who had opened my eyes to a world beyond these tranquil walls, who had planted the seeds of restlessness that still stirred within me. He had returned. "Kawakami-san," I breathed, descending the steps to meet him. It is truly you." He offered a wry smile. "In the flesh, or what's left of it. I trust you've been behaving yourself in my absence?" "As much as one can," I replied, a smile tugging at my own lips. "Come, you must be weary. Let me offer you shelter and refreshment." I led him inside, settling him on a comfortable cushion. He accepted a cup of tea with a grateful nod, his hands, calloused and scarred, trembling slightly as he brought it to his lips. He looked around the familiar room, his gaze lingering on the scrolls in the meditation garden outside. "It hasn't changed much," he murmured, "a comforting constant in a world of flux." "Nor have you, Kawakami-san," I said, though the words felt inadequate. He was different, undeniably marked by the passage of time and the weight of his experiences. But the essence of the man, the sharp wit, the restless spirit, remained unchanged. He spent the next few days recuperating, slowly regaining his strength. He spoke little of his travels at first, preferring to listen, to observe, to reacquaint himself with the rhythm of the monastery. But as his body healed, so did his spirit, and soon the stories began to flow. He spoke of the bustling streets of Edo, the political intrigues of the shogun's court, the simmering discontent among the populace. He described the beauty of Mount Fuji at sunrise, the terror of a typhoon at sea, the quiet dignity of a tea ceremony in a remote village. He told tales of wandering ronin, ambitious merchants, and cunning geishas, each story a vibrant tapestry woven with humor, tragedy, and a deep understanding of the human condition. He hadn't returned to disrupt my life, as I initially feared. He hadn't come seeking solace or absolution. He had simply come to share, to offer a glimpse of the world beyond the rice paddies, beyond the confines of the monastery walls. He had come to show me the paths taken, the paths untaken, the infinite possibilities that lay before me. He spoke of the changing times, the growing influence of the West, the whispers of rebellion that were beginning to spread throughout the land. He described the clash between tradition and modernity, the struggle for power, the uncertainty of the future. "The world is a far more complex place than you imagine, young master," he said one evening, his gaze distant, as if he were seeing those faraway places in his mind's eye. "The lines are blurring, the old ways are fading. It is a time of great upheaval, of both danger and opportunity." He spoke of the choices he had made, the regrets he carried, the lessons he had learned along the way. He spoke of the importance of loyalty, the futility of revenge, the power of forgiveness. He spoke of the search for meaning in a world that often seemed meaningless. "There is no single path to enlightenment," he said. "No one right answer. The journey itself is the destination. The struggles, the triumphs, the mistakes, they are all part of the tapestry of life." His words resonated deeply within me, stirring the embers of restlessness that I had tried so hard to suppress. I had found peace within the monastery walls, but a part of me still yearned for the unknown, for the adventures that lay beyond. Kawakami didn't urge me to leave, didn't try to sway my decision. He simply presented the world to me in all its complexity and beauty and left me to grapple with the implications. He knew that the choice was ultimately mine. One crisp morning, as the sun painted the mountains in hues of gold and crimson, Kawakami announced his intention to leave. He had rested, he had shared his stories, and now it was time for him to move on. The road, he said, was calling. As he stood at the monastery gates, ready to depart, he turned to me, a faint smile playing on his lips. "The world awaits, young master," he said, his voice soft but firm. "Don't be afraid to embrace it." He bowed deeply, then turned and walked away, his figure slowly disappearing into the morning mist. I watched him go, a mixture of sadness and gratitude filling my heart. He had come a visitor from afar, a weary traveler seeking refuge. But he had left a teacher, a guide, a reminder that the world was vast and full of wonders, and that the greatest journey was the journey within. The crackling fire painted flickering shadows across Kawakami's face, the orange glow catching the silver threads woven through his dark hair. We sat close, the chill of the evening air held at bay by the monastery's hearth. It felt like old times, a comfortable silence settling between us, punctuated only by the snap and hiss of burning wood. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a testament to a friendship rekindled. "You know," Kawakami began, his voice a low rumble, "when I was stationed in the north, beyond the Jade Mountains." He launched into a tale of snow-swept plains and barbarian hordes, his words painting vivid pictures of desperate battles fought against impossible odds. I listened, captivated, as he recounted stories of legendary warriors and cunning strategists, their names now etched in the annals of history. He spoke of a warrior monk, his staff whirling like a dervish in the blizzard, holding back a wave of enemies single-handedly, buying precious time for his comrades to escape. He described the eerie silence before the charge, the thunder of hooves on frozen ground, the clash of steel against steel. He paused, stirring the embers with a long branch, sending a shower of sparks spiraling upwards. "Those were harsh lands," he mused, his gaze lost in the flames, "but they forged strong men." He looked at me, a faint smile playing on his lips, and some rather interesting stories. He then spoke of a distant land, a land of shimmering deserts and hidden oases. He told of cunning traders and mystical sorcerers, of ancient ruins whispered to hold forgotten magic. He described bustling marketplaces, overflowing with exotic spices and silks, the air thick with the scent of incense and unfamiliar delicacies. He spoke of a city carved from living rock, its walls adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to shift and change in the moonlight. He recounted a legend of a hidden city, swallowed by the sands, its location known only to a select few. His words flowed like a familiar river, carrying me away on a current of adventure and intrigue. I had always admired his gift for storytelling, The way he could transport you to another world with just his words. It was like a lullaby. A comforting rhythm that chased away the shadows that had lingered in my mind these past weeks. The fire crackled and popped, sending a wave of warmth washing over me. I felt a sense of peace settle over me, a tranquility I hadn't known I craved. The weight it had been pressing down on me, the burden of uncertainty and fear seemed to lift, carried away by the smoke curling towards the rafters. In the quiet moments between his tales, we simply sat, listening to the sounds of the monastery, the distant chanting of monks, the rustling of leaves in the courtyard. The shared silence was as comforting as his words, a testament to the bond we shared. It was a bond forged in hardship, tested by time, and now stronger than ever. From somewhere beyond the monastery walls, the familiar cry of the firewood seller drifted through the night air. Firewood! Good dry firewood! But tonight, the cry held a different tone. It wasn't the mournful wail that had haunted me for so long, a constant reminder of my inner turmoil. Tonight, it was almost cheerful, a melodic call echoing across the rice paddies, a rhythmic counterpoint to the crackling fire. Kawakami chuckled. Old man Hemlock is in fine spirits tonight, he remarked, a twinkle in his eye. Perhaps he sold all his wood, and is celebrating with a cup of sake. The firewood seller's song, once a symbol of my isolation, now felt like a celebration. A celebration of shared stories, of rekindled friendship, of the quiet comfort found in the company of someone who understood. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a spark of hope, a flicker of warmth waiting to be rekindled. Kawakami continued to tell his stories, his voice weaving a tapestry of faraway lands and heroic deeds. The fire burned low, casting long, dancing shadows across the room. The firewood seller's cries faded into the distance, replaced by the chirping of crickets and the gentle whisper of the wind. As the embers died down and the night grew late, a sense of contentment washed over me. I realized that the monastery fire wasn't just warming my body, it was warming my soul. And the firewood seller's song, once a lament, had become a lullaby, a soothing melody that lulled me into a peaceful sleep. The stories, the fire, the song, they were all interwoven, creating a sense of belonging, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, the bonds of friendship and the power of storytelling could provide solace and strength. The world outside the monastery walls still held uncertainties, but for tonight, within these walls, surrounded by the warmth of friendship and the echoes of stories, I felt at peace. Kawakami's shoulders, usually rigid with the weight of responsibility, seemed lighter somehow, as if a persistent wind had finally died down. He looked out at the shimmering rice paddies, their emerald green a stark contrast to the graying sky. I thought freedom was out there, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, gesturing vaguely towards the horizon. Beyond the village, beyond duty. And what do you see now, Kawakami? I asked, letting the stillness of the centuries settle between us. He took a slow, deliberate breath, the kind a man takes after a long, hard climb. I see that I was running from myself, from what I was meant to be. He paused, turning to meet my gaze. I see that the village, my duty, it's not a cage. It's a foundation, a place to build from. I nodded, feeling the resonance of his words deep within my own ancient spirit. Like two sides of the same rice paddy, I murmured, my eyes tracing the intricate network of waterways feeding the vibrant green. One side reflects the sky, the other holds the earth. Both essential, both part of the whole. Kawakami looked at me, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. You've seen much, haven't you? I smiled, a gentle ripple across the surface of time. More seasons than you can count, Kawakami. More harvest than grains of rice in this field. And in all that time, I've learned that true freedom, it isn't about running away. It's about facing what is, accepting the consequence, and choosing to act with integrity. He sat in silence for a moment, absorbing my words. The only sound was the rustle of the rice stalks swaying in the gentle breeze. And duty? He finally asked. Duty can be a burden, I conceded, a weight that presses down upon you. But it can also be a vessel for change, for good, a way to shape not only your own destiny, but the destiny of those around you. I looked out at the paddy, a memory surfacing from the depths of my being. I remember a young farmer, generations ago. He saw the river flooding, threatening to destroy the crops. He could have fled, saved himself. But he didn't. He rallied the villagers, built levees, diverted the water. He saved the harvest, and in doing so, he saved the village. His duty, it was a heavy one, but it became a source of strength, a wellspring of hope. Kawakami seemed lost in thought, his eyes fixed on the shimmering water. "I thought destiny was a fixed path," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Something predetermined." I shook my head gently. "Destiny is not a single thread, Kawakami. It's a tapestry, woven with the choices we make, the sacrifices we offer, the joys we embrace, and the sorrows we endure." I felt a warmth spread through me, a comforting presence. Our ancestors understood this. They saw the world as a dance between opposing forces, light and shadow, creation and destruction, duty and freedom. They sought not to conquer one or the other, but to find the balance, the harmony within the dance. I paused, allowing the weight of these words to settle. The ancients believed that these seemingly opposing forces were not enemies but two sides of the same coin, essential for the universe's equilibrium. Just as the inhale needs the exhale, so too does duty need freedom. Constraint need release. One cannot exist without the other. "I remember the stories my grandmother told me," Kawakami said softly, a smile playing on his lips. "Stories of the kami, the spirits that dwell in the mountains and rivers. They too," she said, "were bound by duty, by the natural order. But within that duty, they found joy, they found purpose." I nodded, a surge of emotion welling up within me. "The ancestors whisper their wisdom on the wind, Kawakami. Listen closely and you will hear them guide you." I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling the connection to those who came before, a lineage stretching back through time. They nodded, I felt, approving of the lessons passed on, the wisdom shared. "And now?" Kawakami asked, his voice tinged with concern. "Now's destiny, like yours, is her own to weave," I replied. "Her spirit is strong, Kawakami. She has faced hardship, endured pain, but she has not broken. She has chosen to embrace the light, to seek a path of healing and growth. She will find her way." I paused, looking directly into Kawakami's eyes. She understands the value of freedom, the price of consequence, and in understanding that, she has found a strength that will guide her through any darkness. Kawakami took a deep breath, the tension visibly leaving his body. "Then I will trust in her strength," he said, a newfound resolve echoing in his words. "And I will trust in my own." "As you should," I replied, a gentle smile gracing my lips. "For you both have learned a valuable lesson. True freedom is not about escaping the constraints of duty, but about embracing the responsibility it carries, and choosing to act with integrity, with courage, and with compassion. It's in those choices, Kawakami, that we truly shape our destiny, and in those choices, we find our liberation." The sun broke through the clouds, bathing the rice paddies in a golden light. A new day was dawning, and with it, a new understanding. The ancestors nodded, their presence a silent blessing on the path ahead. The dust settled on the road where Kawakami had stood only moments before. His goodbye this time felt different, less final, less burdened. He carried not the weight of expectation, but the lightness of hope. He'd listened intently, considered each word, his brow furrowed in thought as I spoke of the interconnectedness of things, the ripple effect of even the smallest act of kindness, the power of choosing a path not for what it promised, but for what it allowed him to offer. He'd finally understood that finding his purpose wasn't about reaching a destination, but about becoming the person he was meant to be along the way. He wouldn't follow the well-worn path to the capital this time. Instead, he'd chosen to head north, to the mountain villages where his skills as a healer were desperately needed. He'd spoken of building schools, of sharing his knowledge, not for glory or recognition, but because it felt right. A small smile played on his lips as he bowed deeply, a silent promise exchanged between us, a mutual understanding that transcended words. He turned then, shoulders squared, a new spring in his step, and vanished around the bend in the road, leaving me in the stillness of the afternoon, the echo of his newfound resolve hanging in the air. The path back to the shrine was familiar. yet different. The air, previously heavy with the weight of the unspoken, now vibrated with an almost palpable energy. It hummed with a newfound lightness, a gentle thrumming that resonated within me. The very leaves of the trees seemed to shimmer, catching the late afternoon sunlight as if they were prisms, scattering rainbows across the forest floor. The birdsong felt brighter, more melodious, as if the creatures of the forest, too, felt the shift in the atmosphere. Each step I took was infused with a sense of purpose, a feeling of being exactly where I needed to be. As I approached the clearing where the shrine lay hidden, nestled amongst ancient cedar trees, the humming intensified. The air shimmered with an ethereal golden light, emanating from within the shrine itself. It pulsed with a gentle rhythm, a heartbeat of ancient power reawakened. I paused at the edge of the clearing, taking a deep breath, letting the revitalizing energy wash over me. It felt like coming home after a long journey, a homecoming to a place I hadn't realized I'd been missing. The wooden steps leading to the shrine seemed to glow faintly in the twilight, beckoning me forward. I ascended them slowly, each step a deliberate act of reverence. The worn wooden door, usually heavy and resistant, swung open effortlessly as if welcoming my return. Stepping inside, I was enveloped in a warm golden light. The air within the shrine throbbed with an almost tangible energy, a potent blend of ancient power and renewed purpose. The small, wooden statues of the kami, previously still and silent, now seemed to radiate a gentle warmth, their expressions softer, more benevolent. I knelt before the central altar, the smooth, worn wood cool beneath my fingertips. The lingering scent of incense mingled with the fresh, earthy aroma of the forest, creating a sacred and comforting atmosphere. I closed my eyes, breathing deeply, letting the energy of the shrine flow through me. It filled me with a sense of profound peace, a quiet joy that resonated deep within my soul. It was a blessing, a tangible manifestation of the hope and renewal that Kawakami carried with him on his new path. But it was more than that. It felt expansive, boundless, reaching far beyond the confines of the shrine, beyond the village, beyond the rice paddies that had defined our world for generations. I saw a vision then, fleeting yet vivid. I saw Kawakami in the mountain villages, teaching children, healing the sick, his face alight with purpose. I saw the villagers, their faces etched with gratitude, their lives transformed by his kindness and his knowledge. I saw our own village, thriving and vibrant, the rice paddies flourishing, the community strengthened by the spirit of generosity and interconnectedness that Kawakami's journey had ignited. And beyond that, I saw other villages, other communities, touched by the ripple effect of this single act of transformation. The world beyond the rice paddies, a world I had only glimpsed in stories and dreams, was now bathed in a warm golden light, mirroring the light that filled the shrine. This was not just a blessing for our village, but a blessing for the world. It was a testament to the power of choice, the power of compassion, the power of one individual to make a difference. Kawakami's journey, once burdened by the weight of expectation, had become a beacon of hope, illuminating a path towards a brighter future, not just for himself, but for all who were touched by his spirit. The golden light within the shrine began to subside, slowly fading back into the soft twilight that filtered through the open door. The humming in the air softened, becoming a gentle whisper, a promise of continued blessings. I remained kneeling for a long time, absorbing the residual energy, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and peace. The world had changed, subtly, yet profoundly. A new beginning had been forged, not in grand pronouncements or dramatic gestures, but in the quiet resolve of a single heart, choosing a path of purpose, a path of service, a path that led not only to self-discovery but to the transformation of the world. When I finally rose, the air felt lighter, cleaner, as if the very dust motes dancing in the twilight had been imbued with a new energy. I stepped out of the shrine, pausing at the top of the steps to look out over the valley below. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, a breathtaking tapestry of color that mirrored the hope blossoming within my heart. The world was still full of challenges, of uncertainties, but now there was also a sense of possibility, a sense of hope, a sense that even the smallest act of kindness could ripple outwards, touching countless lives, transforming the world in ways we could only begin to imagine. And in that moment, Standing on the steps of the ancient shrine, bathed in the fading light of a new beginning, I knew that everything would be all right. Years melt into decades, the sharp edges of youth softening into the gentle curves of age. The visions, once fleeting glimpses of the future, solidify, transforming into an unwavering clarity, a deep well of understanding. The rice paddies, once vibrant green canvases painted with prophecies, now whisper in hushed tones of lessons learned, stories shared, of the unwavering strength of a shrine maiden who embraced duty and, within its embrace, discovered a freedom unlike any other. The wind rustles through the rice stalks, carrying these whispers to the shrine, and the ancient wood, imbued with the spirit of generations, whispers back, acknowledging the passage of time, the weight of experience, the quiet power of a life lived in service. The sun-baked earth remembers the imprint of your feet, the countless times you walked the path between the village and the shrine. It remembers the weight of your burdens, the quiet anxieties you carried, the unwavering hope you nurtured. The wind remembers your prayers, whispered into the rustling leaves, rising on the smoke of incense offerings, imbued with the hopes and fears of your people. The shrine remembers your touch, the gentle sweep of your hands across the worn wood, the reverence in your eyes as you performed the ancient rituals. You, who once stood as a young maiden before the altar, now stand as a pillar of the community, your roots sunk deep into the earth, your branches reaching towards the heavens. The lines etched on your face are not marks of age, but the roadmap of a life lived with purpose, each wrinkle a testament to a challenge overcome, a lesson learned, a kindness offered. Your eyes, once bright with youthful curiosity, now hold the deep, still waters of wisdom. They have seen the cycle of life and death, the ebb and flow of joy and sorrow, and they reflect the unwavering peace that comes with acceptance. The children, now grown with children of their own, gather at your feet, eager to hear your stories. They listen, spellbound, as you recount tales of harvests past, of festivals celebrated, of challenges faced and overcome. They see not just a wizened old woman, but a living embodiment of their history, a link to their ancestors, a guardian of their traditions. Your words are more than just stories. They are seeds of wisdom planted in fertile ground, ensuring that the values you hold dear will continue to blossom for generations to come. You teach them the rhythm of the rice paddies, the importance of respecting the land, the power of community. You teach them the ancient rituals, the significance of each gesture, the connection to the spirits that watch over them. You teach them the stories of the shrine, the legends of their ancestors, the importance of honoring their heritage. And as you teach, you learn, for the act of sharing deepens understanding, strengthens connections, and illuminates the path ahead. Your name, once whispered with reverence within the confines of your village, now echoes through the surrounding valleys, carried on the wind, woven into the fabric of the land. It is not spoken with the awe reserved for warriors or conquerors, but with the deep respect and affection held for those who serve their communities with unwavering dedication. You are not a figure of power, but a source of enduring peace, a beacon of hope, a living testament to the quiet strength that resides within a gentle heart. History remembers the emperors and the generals, the battles fought, and the lands conquered. But the land remembers the farmers, the weavers, the healers, the shrine maidens who tended the sacred flames and kept the spirit of their communities alive. They may not have commanded armies or ruled kingdoms, but they shaped the hearts and minds of their people, leaving behind a legacy of wisdom, resilience, and unwavering devotion. Just as the rice paddies nourish the body, these unsung heroes nourish the soul of their communities, ensuring that the values they held dear would endure through the passage of time. You are one of these unsung heroes. You are the living embodiment of the wisdom gleaned from years of quiet observation, of lessons learned from the cycles of nature, of the deep understanding that comes from a life lived in service to something greater than oneself. You are the keeper of the shrine, the guardian of the traditions, the voice of the ancestors, and your presence is a blessing to all who know you. The shrine, once a simple structure of wood and stone, has become something more. It has become a repository of memories, a symbol of continuity, a testament to the enduring power of faith and devotion. It stands as a silent witness to the passage of time, to the changing seasons, to the lives lived and the lessons learned within its hallowed grounds. And at its heart you stand, not as a prisoner of duty, but as a guardian of the flame, a beacon of hope, a testament to the quiet strength that resides within a gentle heart. The rice paddies whisper your name, and the shrine whispers back, acknowledging your legacy, your devotion, the enduring peace you have brought to this land. Your life, a quiet tapestry woven with threads of duty and devotion, has become a work of art, a testament to the profound wisdom that can be found in the simplest of lives, in the quiet service of a shrine maiden, in the gentle rustling of the rice. The sky bled into a canvas of orange and violet, the last rays of the setting sun catching the edges of the rice stalks and turning them to burnished gold. The air, still warm from the day's heat, carried the scent of damp earth and the sweet fragrance of ripening rice. A profound sense of peace settled over me, as gentle and pervasive as the evening mist rising from the paddies. This sunset, more vibrant and beautiful than any I had witnessed before, felt like a mirror reflecting the end of my own earthly journey. There was no fear, no regret, only a quiet joy, a deep sense of completion. My life, though simple, had been one of service, of connection to the land and to the people of this small village. I had planted and harvested alongside them, shared their joys and sorrows, and witnessed the cycle of life unfold season after season. Now, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a sense of belonging not just to this village, but to the greater rhythm of the universe. The distant, familiar cry of the firewood seller echoed through the valley, a mournful yet strangely comforting sound. "Maki! Maki! Good firewood for sale!" His voice, usually robust and full of life, now held a tremor, a subtle weariness. It seemed to blend with the whispers of the rice stalks swaying in the gentle breeze, and the low, resonant chanting of the monks from the temple on the hill. It was a final farewell, not just from the firewood seller ending his day, but from the world itself, bidding me goodbye. I closed my eyes, letting the sounds wash over me. The firewood seller's cry, the rustling rice, the monks chanting. They were all part of the same tapestry, woven together by the fading light of the setting sun. Each sound, each sensation, held a memory, a story, a piece of my life. The laughter of children playing in the fields, the rhythmic thud of the rice-pounding mallet, the comforting warmth of the hearth on a cold winter night, they all came flooding back, vivid and precious. I remembered the first time I heard the firewood seller's cry, a young boy newly arrived in this village, unsure and afraid. His voice, strong and reassuring, had been a beacon in the unfamiliar landscape. Over the years, his cry had become a constant, a reminder of the simple rhythms of life. Now, hearing it for what I knew would be the last time, it held a poignant beauty, a reminder that all things, no matter how constant they seem, must eventually come to an end. The air grew cooler, the vibrant hues of the sunset fading into softer shades of lavender and gray. The first stars began to appear, twinkling like diamonds scattered across the darkening sky. I opened my eyes and looked towards the west, where the sun had disappeared below the horizon. A faint afterglow lingered, a final, fleeting reminder of the day's warmth and light. I thought of the ancient stories, the ones passed down through generations, about the setting sun being a symbol of transition, not just an ending, but also a beginning. It wasn't simply about death, but about renewal, about the cyclical nature of existence. The sun, after setting in the west, would rise again in the east, bringing with it a new day, a new beginning. This thought brought a sense of comfort, a quiet assurance that even in the face of death, there was still hope, still the promise of something more. The firewood seller's cry faded into silence, replaced by the chirping of crickets and the distant hooting of an owl. The monks' chanting continued, a steady, rhythmic drone that seemed to permeate the very air I breathed. It was a sound of peace, of acceptance, of connection to something larger than myself. I felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the life I had lived, but for the beauty and wonder of the world around me. The setting sun, the firewood seller's final cry, the whispering rice, the chanting monks, they were all part of the same grand, intricate design. And I, a small, insignificant part of that design, was finally at peace. The transition was upon me, and I embraced it, not with fear, but with a sense of quiet joy, knowing that I was part of something timeless, something eternal. The cycle continued, the sun would rise again, and life, in all its myriad forms, would go on. My journey was ending, but the journey of the universe, the eternal dance of creation and destruction, would continue, forever unfolding in its own mysterious and beautiful way. Your spirit, light and unburdened, drifts upwards, drawn by a familiar pull towards the heart of your village. Not skyward, not to some distant unknown realm, but downwards, into the rich, dark earth, into the gentle embrace of your ancestors. You feel them all around you, a comforting presence like the warmth of a hearth fire on a winter's night. They are the whispering wind that rustles the leaves of the sacred sakura tree, the soft glow of the moon on the still waters of the rice paddies, the very air you breathe. Your wisdom, gathered over a lifetime of service, joins theirs, a gentle murmur in the eternal symphony of the afterlife. Each memory, each lesson learned, each act of kindness performed, becomes a tiny spark, joining the 1,000 fireflies that dance and shimmer around you. Each firefly, a whispered story of a life well lived, a life dedicated to protecting your village, to honoring the spirits, to weaving the delicate tapestry of tradition that binds your people together. You feel the earth beneath you, no longer solid ground, but a soft, yielding embrace. It cradles you, not as a grave, but as a mother's arms. You are a part of the earth now, your essence, seeping into the soil, nourishing the roots of the trees, feeding the lifeblood of the land you loved so fiercely. You are the gentle rain that falls upon the thirsty fields, the warm sun that nurtures the growing rice, the quiet strength of the mountains that stand guard over your village. You are no longer separate, but a part of the whole, woven into the very fabric of existence. You feel a deep sense of belonging, a profound connection to this place, this community, these spirits. This is not a new beginning, but a homecoming. You were always meant to return here, to become one with the land, to join the chorus of ancestral whispers that guide and protect the generations to come. You see the future unfold before you, not as a fixed path, but as a tapestry of possibilities, woven by the hands of those who will follow in your footsteps. You see the young shrine maidens, their faces earnest and bright, learning the ancient rituals, carrying the torch of tradition, their voices joining the whispers of the wind. You are there with them, a silent guardian, a source of strength and wisdom, your spirit woven into the very fabric of their being. You see the village thrive, its people living in harmony with the land and the spirits, their laughter echoing through the valleys, their songs carried on the wind. You see the rice paddies sway in the breeze, a sea of emerald green, promising abundance and prosperity. You see the sacred sakura tree blossom, its delicate pink petals raining down like blessings, a symbol of renewal and hope. You see the children playing in the fields, their faces lit with joy, their spirits as free as the birds that soar overhead. You see the elders sharing stories around the fire, their voices filled with wisdom and love, passing down the legacy of your people to the next generation. There is no pain, no sorrow, no fear in this realm. There is only peace, a deep, abiding peace that settles over you like a soft blanket. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you have fulfilled your purpose, that you have left the world a better place than you found it. The kind of peace that comes from being surrounded by love, by the warmth of your ancestors, by the gentle embrace of the earth. You are not lost, you are not forgotten. You are home. The wind whispers your name, a soft sigh that carries the echoes of 1,000 generations. It speaks of ancient rituals, of sacred traditions, of the enduring spirit of your people. It whispers stories of courage and sacrifice, of love and loss, of the endless cycle of life and death. It whispers of the deep connection between the human and the spirit world, of the delicate balance that must be maintained to ensure harmony and prosperity. And then, in a voice as familiar as your own heartbeat, the wind whispers, "You are home." You feel a sense of completion, a sense of wholeness. The journey is over. The burdens you carried, the responsibilities you bore, the fears you held close, all fall away like autumn leaves, carried on the gentle breeze. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to strive for. You are free. You are home now, dreamer. The long journey filled with trials and tribulations, with moments of joy and sorrow, has reached its end. You have returned to the source, to the heart of all that is. You are no longer bound by the limitations of the physical world, but free to explore the infinite possibilities of the spirit realm. You are a part of something greater than yourself, a part of the eternal flow of life, death, and rebirth. The soft light of the fireflies surrounds you, a comforting glow that lulls you into a state of profound tranquility. The whispers of the wind become softer, gentler, fading into a sweet lullaby that soothes your soul. The earth cradles you closer, its warmth seeping into your very being, filling you with a sense of deep peace and contentment. You are home now. Close your eyes, dreamer. Let go of all your worries, all your fears, all your regrets. Rest now in the gentle embrace of the earth, surrounded by the love of your ancestors, bathed in the soft light of 1,000 whispered stories. Good night, sleep well,